Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 9. Hearts of Iron 3 Black Ice 9.11, and of course we're playing as Germany. And again, I'm going to ask you all, do me a big favor and just hit that like button. Just, you know, whether you smash it on your phone if you're watching it on your phone, or click on it with your mouse if you're on a computer like I am. I do all my watching of things on the internet on my computer. Okay, we've got two of these electric. Okay, and I sort of now, after watching World War II in color again, they talked about what they sort of generically call electric boats. Okay, we'll leave Donuts in charge of this one. I normally don't, just because I don't want to lose him for various, you know, he wasn't really out to be lost. But these were the Type 21s. I forget. I'm not good with remembering numbers. That they were building after the final real sort of loss in the Battle of Atlantic, and Donuts calls basically all the U-boats home from the Battle of Atlantic. I think they were still sort of patrolling around some of these other waters in coastally, but way out there they and I know they were still sort of patrolling in the Baltic, because the Soviets, as the war, you know, as the Soviets were pushing back, they were operating naval vessels in and around the Baltic Sea again. But out in the Atlantic, he calls all the U-boats home, and they get one. They start building these things, but again, as the documentary is going, a little too little and too late. They get one of these built and operational before the end of the war, but it has no chance to go out and you know, be active, in the sense that they're sort of, I guess, in the Baltic training up, and yeah, everything's working, and the next day the war is over or something, and so they never get out. And so we never know, not whether they could have changed the outcome of the war. We sort of already know that it was too little too late. You know, we can talk about what ifs, and I'm of course playing a game that we're talking about what ifs. You know, what if they had done this, or what if they had done that. And that is a very real and good exercise. So but like I say, we know they would not have changed the outcome of the war, but we don't know how effective. Ooh, they got really munched up. They're not being attacked in port, because this is still a neutral port, but they got munched up getting here. Wow, not that badly, but much. They encountered somebody, because we got these guys heading down to fight down there. You know, I might just do a naval landing with those. Now these guys were sent down to sort of deal with some of this, and maybe I should have had them operating out at, oh come on, out at sea. I'm just paranoid that if I don't see it turn blue, it for some reason isn't going to operate, even though I've told it to operate in this very larger area, but I presume that it will be operating there. And down here. Okay. See, there I'm much more comfortably assured that it is going to operate in those areas where I'm telling it to. Ah, see, we've already got somebody. Oh, they're going after the heavy cruiser Norfolk. Quickly, but yeah. And what are they? Okay, the battleship Paris, along with its destroyer escort. Okay, damage control systems, level 5 for light vessels. Good. Oh, and we're way down on that. So, well, let's stop that, because that's way too far in advance. And amphibious light armor is also improved. Great, probably grayed out. No, but we'll stop that anyways. I'm going to do a 1944, and I'm right now going to do a 1944 tech, I do believe. We're going to do advanced armor designs. And let's do extra wide tracks. Don't know what specifically is going to unlock that, but okay. Fliegerführer Croatian. All right, we'll do that now. And damn, that's exactly what I should have was preparing to do, but should have just waited on that. Waited. We're going overkill just to, since we didn't wait, to very quickly get that up, lock that down, and expand that level of production. Now we have, well, let's move this to the top. It won't kick out anything that I'm sort of wanting to get there now, like oil and rare extractions to deal with the rares, which we're almost at, and that's not so bad. 37. Guess we've only have one more oil rig in there to produce. Well, that's telling me okay. Oh, and we are having our fun with the. Okay, they're being actively operated against. Fun with playing with the Serbians. Now, resource map. What is it? I wish these were okay. Oh, we should be having Dresden and whatever. Am I just missing? Bunch of oil production. Why do I see a... Oh no, it's a rares production. Okay, yeah. I was looking here, but no, it's up here. Okay. We'll do that. Doesn't have a lot of oil. They've just been bombed. I think there's... Oh, here we are. We're at 22 already, so we'll expand that. Sutton. Does Vienna have some for some reason? Oh, I think, yeah. Okay. We're expanding some of those to help deal with this. I found another one out here. I think that's the one that's still under construction. I know I found one out here. I know it's out here somewhere, but I could be looking in a very sort of wrong area. Russia's big. Where is it? It was just a small amount. Should have an oil can, but unfortunately I may have parked somebody on top of it to protect it from being a revolt risk. Or, you know, if there's a revolt breaks out. Oh well. Oh well. Move these guys up to the top too. And we also have, okay, that's coming out. That and 4 at level 2, 6 at level 3, partially level 3. Yeah, let's do all of these. I mean, it's gonna cost me some IC obviously, but it isn't gonna hurt. Okay, that'll help some. Okay, we won the battle up here. They're going to win that. Okay, they're still in their own battle. Let's come back down here. still repairing. Okay, these guys here. Yes, come back over to here. They're slowly coming up. They're supporting that attack. They're not doing anything. They're going to now support this attack again. And they've already... okay. Yep, they get to go back into the fray and they coming out. Okay, good. Now, these guys go home. Well, I'm back up to Berlin where I have a huge air base. Oh, I don't like how this thing works. What if I accidentally or whatever hit a icon instead of just the province? There we go. Rebase up here. Oh, that's alright. They're close enough. They're going to operate for a long time. I want greater range down here, but just come down here and we will get you to bomb. Oh yes, Algiers, of course, we keep winning that sort of stupid battle thing. Okay, okay, these guys are getting your supplies. Those guys are still trying to get organized up and are in no shape to attack even if they could. But these guys need supplies, so we're going to shift supplies to there. And you can join that fight. And I think you were supplying down into some of that region there. Yeah, you switch supplies over to there. Okay, we've won that battle there, good, with these guys. Still in reasonably good shape. Okay, formed the 100th Jaeger Division. Good, we'll take that, nice picture. Light Infantry Division established December 4th with Austria. Okay, Stalingrad was re-established in April. Fought in the Balkans, Croatia, Albania, and places. Okay, so that's why they have the Italian tanks, either as part of them or operating. You know, German use of Italian tanks. Okay, makes sort of sense. Armored fighting vehicles, an armored fighting vehicle. Machine gun is just as good as it ever was. It just might be not as good as a Sherman, you know, obviously. But if you're, oh, we also have been waiting. Nope, you're not there yet. But you're getting closer. Good. You're getting across that river. Well, at least now we are moving towards thought of the positive, though we're still a little bit negative. Okay, and see, now we're back up to 17,000 plus. That's sort of what I mean, and that wasn't just because I'm pumping a lot more supplies in. Okay, carrier damage control systems have advanced. Very nice. Keep them from being sunk, and we'll let that continue. And fire control or cruiser fire control. Okay, that. And damage control, I guess, also will both be stopped now. Yes. Sabotage the hydroelectric plant at Niagara Falls. Yes, sure. And Operation Pastorius, most excellent. Really, I'm suspicious on whether any of those are working, because not because of the coding, just because of the coding. Because historically they were not successful at all, and at least for a little while. There was reports being sent back that some of those things were happening, I do believe, to fool the Germans. Okay, you're pushing ahead, advance on sort of infrastructural elements of some of our tanks. Armor thickness. We'll do welded plate construction. Other than that, okay, we got some more capabilities. Probably because I unclicked a lot. Yeah. Sort of wanting to wait for some of these engines which will improve and offset some of that stuff. Let's look at guns. Okay, medium velocity guns. We'll get that pushing forward. Oh, you're there? Good. Go after them. Portugal. Okay, cancel this. And our garrison shattered. Damn. That means they go back to Berlin. Okay, we give them money for rare materials. Okay, we'll do this one. Well, now that you've taken all of the island, come up to there. Now that you're doing well, you guys come out here and convoy raid passive. Mess with them some more. Now, how is our revolt risk in some of these regions? Okay. Sent down these guys and their supply hasn't caught up to them. They're still just moving around. The Italians are moving through, which helps our revolt risk. Don't know where the hell they're going. Back to Italy, probably. Taking a long way around. Yeah, he does that. Okay. Capital ships damage control systems. Great. And we'll and it's grayed out. Okay, good. And aircraft carrier engines have advanced. Carrier. Yeah, we'll let it go. I don't know how much good that's doing us, but we'll let that continue going. Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Of course, we're just treating this as any other guerrilla uprising. But it's the ghetto of Warsaw, not the later, bigger uprising that was triggered by the Soviet advance to like here, and then the Soviets, oh, you're uprising. Oh, great. We'll take a vacation and let the Germans kill you. Yeah. And I guess this is time for harangue about gun control. These people have guns. These people don't. No, they do temporarily here. But whether it was 12 million or 6 million Jews and other people killed in Nazi camps, or whether can't have been that many, just we've done the math and it's just too many people. Okay, whether it's 2 million people or something, it was in the millions. Obviously I'm not denying it. I think it was near the 12 million, but I have no good information as whether it was 6 million or 12 million or whatever, but the millions, way too many people. But you cannot effectively run a society like the Nazis were doing and run a war and doing all this stuff and kill 3 million people if all those 3 million people have guns. And you go, oh, well, how many millions of Soviet soldiers died? Yeah, okay, you would be fighting a Soviet, fighting the Soviets kind of thing. If you had Jews all over Europe who all had some sort of guns, what would be the casualty levels of the people coming after them? When they were rounding up, the Orpo was rounding up, and the not just the SD, the Einsatzgruppens were rounding up, going to towns and villages and rounding up groups of people. Had they all just even had some simple pistol or bolt-action rifle, what would have been the casualty rates of those people? Basically, would be prohibitive. And you go, oh, well, they took out partisans. Yeah, they did. They took out groups of partisans, but those cost them casualty rates. But if everybody was armed, now of course the Soviet Union didn't trust to arm the people, but had they done so, you would not have had this problem. And I know some of the liberals in gun control in America, which is interesting. We've got to have a coup against Trump, or we've got to, Trump's becoming a tyrant. Oh, and take away the guns from all the people. What? You're both worried about, and some of you are not just worried about, some of you believe Trump. At least I watch the news, and some of the people on the news, I'm not talking interviewing people on the streets, I'm talking supposedly newscasters that are supposed that, including Bill Maher and some other people, that Trump is much, much worse than Hitler ever was, kind of thing, if you take their rhetoric. And so I think they really believe that Trump is some sort of intolerable person that's crushing American liberty. But let's take away all high capacity magazines and ARs, rifles, as they talk about them. Because they don't know what they are. They want to take these things all away from the people. Get the conflict or the lack of coherent, put together thought. You're worried about a tyrant, but you want to take away the ability of the people to resist the tyrant. Really? So you're really either not worried that he's a tyrant, and you only just sort of kind of vaguely believe it, and you are just using the rhetoric to go after Trump. Or, so he's not really a tyrant, so you don't want to bring him down. Or you want to bring him down, and how are you intending on doing it? Without guns? Kitchen-made bombs, like back in the 70s when they blew up things. Yeah, that doesn't bring down government. That just sort of upsets people. So what's your real plan here? Is it really what it is they're just using rhetoric against Trump, and they think he's going to be gone, and they're trying to get rid of guns so that once they're in control, they get to control things. And no, they're benevolent. They're not going to force you into government health care if you don't want to, or whatever. And they're never going to do one-child only birth control limitations like in China. They would never do it. It doesn't matter if the planet's going to die because we are overpopulated. They would never think of limiting the number of children that are born and forcing people to get abortions to do that, to save the planet. Are you insane? Of course, if they get to that mindset. I'm not saying they ever would, but if they get to that mindset that America or whatever country is too overpopulated, they would force abortions on them. They won't say they would because they don't ever think it as any sort of realistic reality, but they would if they could, or if they thought they needed to. Not if they could, if they thought they needed to. So, and then they go, well, all those guns aren't going to defeat the army. Okay. Let's for the moment ignore Vietnam and Afghanistan that's still going on today, that the U.S. Army, with all of its high-tech abilities, still haven't been able to beat a bunch of hill people with AK-47s. Let's ignore those possibilities. Here's the thing. Functionally, as we sort of understand it now, if you're bringing in the army, not like I've experienced bringing in the army onto the streets of America. There's to Europeans and other people in the world, and to many Americans that are younger, I have experienced U.S. troops onto the streets of America to suppress Americans. I have personally experienced it, and in a mass way, during the Rodney King riots, and I was grateful for where I was, it was the U.S. Marines, and immediately the rioting stopped. Immediately it stopped once you put the Marines on the streets. The army sections continued rioting for a couple, 3 days. But I experienced it personally, and they were very good, very pleasant. I think most of the troops were unarmed, or they had they were armed. They had their guns, but didn't have any ammo on them. I believe, don't know for a fact, but sort of do. At least some of them sort of do. They had ammo like in their Humvees or whatever. They didn't have their guns loaded because they didn't want accidental discharges. They didn't want some Marine who have his facing somebody with sticks or rocks or whatever, pointing their AR, their M16 or their M4 or whatever it was at the time, sort of before the days of the M4. So it's M16 of one flavor or another. A2 or whatever. Pointing it at some rioters. They didn't want to have a finger to slip and a bullet to go off, whether it actually hit somebody or not. They didn't want that to happen. But I do sort of know, at least what I've been told. Again, I was there on the streets. I didn't see it, personally see it at the time. That they had ammo in case somebody does start sniping at them. They could, somebody could rush to the vehicle and pass out some magazines or some ammo to the people to do it, just so that they weren't truly unarmed. But they didn't want to have accidental discharges, and very rapidly, wherever they got troops deployed, immediately, people stopped behaving badly and they were clearing the streets to suppress a riot, a Rodney King riots in LA. I remember the first night I was up in the Fairfax district of LA, and I lived, I'll say, in Long Beach. It's a big enough area, I live in this general area, millions of people in the city, so it's just sort of security reasons. I'm not trying to be mysterious or weird or couldn't tell you more, but you just don't need people now or in the future or whatever. Security can be a problem. You never know. And with my political viewpoints, maybe you get somebody else who decides to do something here. So I just sort of, I'm being cautious on the security. And so I remember I'd ridden up with a couple of friends of mine. We were up in the evening in the Fairfax district, and this stuff sort of happening, and we saw it on television. So we drove back across LA on the freeways, which were moving just fine at that time. Some of the freeways were sort of assaulted at some points, I believe. And watching the city burn in multiple disparate locations, not just one set of fires, but some on one side of the freeway and some on the other side of the freeway, and going a few miles down, some more fires going off. And this was all the very first night of the LA riots. I remember that. And because I have a collection of books that I value very highly on old Scottish things, Jacobites, and that was at my office in downtown Long Beach. I had assault weapons, not an AR in my case, but I had assault weapons, multiple, in the building, watching out of the building at night, the office building, because it was in downtown Long Beach, and it was up a few stories so I could see. And I know I've told some of this before online. I could see the I was hearing gunshots, lots of gunshots, and didn't shoot it. I didn't shoot anything, but hearing lots of gunshots, and they sort of started up away from the ocean and moved slowly towards the ocean. And you just see on the main street, Long Beach Boulevard. You could see from, I wasn't on that street, but I could see from my office building fire starting up as people were moving down. And so I was there, and about midnight or 1 o'clock or so, most of the action and the whatnot was over with. Sort of because of my location. Sort of about a block away across another street, there was a fairly new at the time built sort of condo complex. And there were normally 4 at night. I could see 4 or 5 guys standing out in front of the condo complex. And from what I can see, some were black and some were white. And they were there to protect their homes. I didn't see any guns standing out in the street, but they were there. I presume there were guns either on them that were concealed or very handy, and I don't know if I remember if they had clubs or something in their hand, but they were peacefully standing in front of their building because it was on the corner, and they could sort of look around and see, keeping anybody who didn't live in that condo complex, and it was, again, sort of multiracial, but it was fairly new at the time, from anybody who didn't live in that condo complex or know somebody who lived there or whatever from coming into that complex. But you could see, and so like I say, about 1 o'clock or so, most of the rioting was done, and so every night the fires were getting closer and closer. About a block or two each night, they were burning more and more businesses down as they were moving towards. And I was getting ready that as if they came close, and we had fields of fire, and I wasn't alone in the building. There were some former United States Marines. These weren't the people deployed on the streets. These were former. Well, one of them I think was still a reserve officer, or reserve in the reserve at the time, inactive reserve. But basically, unless we're going to a serious war, once you're in the inactive reserves, you're basically out, but technically still part of it. And we were getting ready to, if need be, have gun battle shots. And definitely, as people were approaching, it was the idea of to discharge the firearm so that they, in a generally safe direction, so that they know you're armed and you're protecting the building and don't come here, kind of thing. And we figured that would most likely be enough. But if it got more than that, we were prepared. And it took days before they got the Marines on the streets and suppressed the riots. So yeah, so I spent a lot of time, and I would basically go home, sleep for a few hours, shower, and then come back in the daylight and be there until the end of the night to sort of protect things, because they were doing lots and lots of robbing, pillaging, doing more of the pillaging in the daylight and then burning at night, it seemed, at least. Oh, and there was no fire department to put any of the fires out because shots were being fired at the fire department, and so they stopped stopped responding to any of the fires for either homes or buildings, because some homes caught on fire because they were right next to the businesses, so people were lighting things on fire, and it was just burning out of control for days. So I have experienced personally U.S. government, armed forces, Marines in my particular area, but there were other parts of LA, there were U.S. Army troops put onto the streets to control the populace. I have experienced that. I know what it's like. I'm not saying it's a bad experience, because I was very grateful to see them. But if you were really talking about a situation in which those troops, to the best of my knowledge, all of those troops, didn't arrest a single person or take a single person into custody. They simply showed up and told people to leave. Because we had not declared martial law, they had no authority to arrest anybody. They had no authority to assault anybody. They could, like I was sort of describing, they could defend themselves. And people very much instinctively knew, gang members and whatnot, Marines are serious. You know whatever the law says, you don't mess with the Marines. That's why the Army had problems, because in some of the areas where the rioting was going on, they deployed the Army. It took them a while before they really started to take them seriously. But what was happening is the Army's out on the streets, and then the police are right behind them arresting people. So the police were doing the act of, coming out and arresting and putting handcuffs on people or zip ties on their wrists and taking them away and doing that stuff. The police were doing the arresting. The Army was just there to make sure that no one's overwhelming the police. Okay, so yes, it's already happened in my lifetime. It happened earlier in my parents' lifetime in the also famous Watts riots, and my dad told me stories about that long before the Rodney King riots. So protest is putting a brick to Reginald Denny's head. I don't get why that's a good protest, but hey, Maxine Waters partied with the people who put bricks to Reginald Denny's head. She's a congresswoman who's right now sort of famous for telling people to harass cabinet ministers at their homes and restaurants and wherever they go, saying harass, not just protest, not just stand out in front with a sign, saying don't do this or do that or whatever. No, they're saying harass, and that's she is, and she literally went out and partied with the people who put the bricks to Reginald Denny's head. So yeah, we know who these people are, at least those of us who pay attention. And so yes, I've experienced it. But if the U.S. if the police were to try to disarm America, this is what, and we're getting back to the liberals in this whole little talk. If the police were to try to disarm America, the police will have absolutely too high of a casualty rate. There's I think 400 million guns in America. We are much better armed than the Army. We are incredibly better armed than the police. And many, many people that hold my types of views have been in the military. So they are not, up to practice because they've been out for 30 years. But they're going to be as good or better than the military in some sort of firefight if you're trying to disarm. And I'm not advocating anybody do anything here. This is not advocation. This is just explaining what would happen if this were to happen in America. And people who claim to want to do it to save the children don't understand how many additional lives, many massively additional lives, are going to get killed. So the police are going to either immediately refuse to arrest anybody who has any guns anywhere around them because they know they will be shot up pretty badly, or they will attempt to do so and get shot up really badly. And then you claim, well, you can't defeat the Army. Well, America will be over as we sort of know it if you were to actively use the Army on what had been previously, before trying to round up the guns, peaceful society, and put the Army on there to go door to door to get the guns and have gun battles with the people who are going to resist this. America's going to be over. Okay, whether the Army would do it or not, trust me, during the Obama administration, they were doing questionnaires, they were doing selective removal through, bad fitness reports, and getting people out in the officer corps that didn't have that had certain political opinions. They were trying to weed out conservative types from the military. They weren't very successful in their time, but it was just the early stages. I think it was more like a 30 or 40 year plan that they were just pushing under sort of Obama. Just the early foundations of it, and there was none of that type of stuff is going on under Clinton. I mean, Clinton didn't care about the military really, but he wasn't a gun grabber. His wife, that's a different matter, but and times have changed. But yeah, you can talk about some of the gun bans under Clinton, but he wasn't going to do the door to door and take away the guns. He was somewhat of a centrist Democrat. Now times have changed, and he's changed and whatnot. But so basically, having an armed populace, armed as heavily as the American populace is, means that you can't disarm it without massive bloodshed, and so you will need a military to do it. And to do that, you've now turned America into a militarist state, and I thought that's what the liberals were against, militarism. Again, their logic doesn't seem to hold together. But so in no practical way are you going to disarm the American populace within the next 50 to 70 years. I don't know if you start, well, obviously they've already started measures, but if they keep going, what will it be like 50 years from now? I don't know if they keep going, but that's what it would take. So people understand that you should ban guns or stop guns or whatever. Yeah, that isn't practical in America. Not that it can't happen, but it isn't practical in America. Guess we can't lower the revolt risks. I don't know. Here, and so this is sort of my thoughts is maybe the Jewish population, if it had been armed, couldn't have stopped this, but it would have meant massive casualties. And not just I'm talking about the Warsaw Ghetto resisting, I'm talking about Jews everywhere. Had you done that, there would have been no practical way for this to happen. So we get a British-sponsored revolt partisan unit here. So if you don't, and since this is basically happening whether the Soviet Union is going, the larger, much larger, and almost successful, if the Soviets had just pushed just a little bit, probably would have been successful. But then you would have had a Polish government who wanted Poland's borders back and who wasn't enamored in socialism and who didn't appreciate the Katyn forest massacre and other bad things that the Soviets did would have happened, and Stalin didn't want that. Oh, damn, I didn't want that to shatter. Damn, okay. Wanted to get it going for India. Oh well, ads, sorry. Come down here. I think there was another unit that shattered and went up here that we should see about sending back in the direction of the port. Thought it didn't have a... Oh, here it is. Come back down here. I keep thinking I'm almost across that river. We've almost got them defeated. It just looks almost, but I guess we're not going to do that right now because he's major defeat. Okay, well, you fly back up to here to repair yourself because we don't have any real repair ability down there, just a very small air base. I'm looking for other bombers to send back, and we're gonna just bomb the crap out of these guys here. How are these guys doing? They're doing okay for the moment. And these guys can come down. Well, like I say, we don't have much of an air base down here. What's its current level is 4. Well, that's a little better than I thought. But with all of our wanting to continue to use air power, let's add to that one more level and move it to the top because we want it done now, not later. So that's sort of my thoughts on some of the real issues with gun control. I get the idea that there's bad things happening with people with guns, and I'd like it to stop too. The question is the cure worse than the problem? Oh, but the children are dying. Okay, that's bad. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say 100 times more children die per year in America, school children, walking to and from school from car accidents. I know that I think it's like 3 or 4 times as many people a year die in Priuses than are died by any reason from gunshots, whether it's suicide, somebody accidentally shooting themselves, or their buddy shooting them while hunting, or whatever the reasons that people die from being shot at. It is... How close are we? Not very is the answer. Okay. So maybe we should ban Priuses, because people die in those little cars that don't have much crumple zones and whatnot to keep from dying in, if we're just trying to save people's lives. And some of the other measures is how much should we deal with mental health, because we used to have a mental health system in America until basically the court system made it, and some of the laws passed, I think, as well, I'm not an expert on it, made it very difficult to confine somebody to a mental health facility if they were problematical, you know. And yes, I am afraid of having it too easy, shall we say, to just simply declare somebody, oh, you're not mentally fit, you're going to, you know, you're going to a health facility. Well, how long? Where? What? Well, until the health facility decides you're well enough. Well, the health facility may be being paid per patient, so the health facility may not want to have too many people go out. You know, they gotta, you know, beds for 500 people at the facility. They want 500 people in the bed. So until they start getting some more people pushed in, they might not want to release people that they think may not really be a danger to themselves or others or whatever. So I can see the problem of big health. Well, big health is good. Well, big health might be good, but big health might not be good. Okay, let's invade here. Since we have invasion ships. Okay. Well, let's look at naval operations. Yeah. Part of the reason I want to invade here is so that I'm not going through a zone. I'm one closer. I'm not going through a zone that seems to be patrolled. And so let's invade. Naval invasion there. Invade Vichy France. I think we can cross the border into free French-controlled Dar es Salaam from there, and hopefully we can fight our way across the river. Increase in Polish resistance. Okay, but I would have this event. Looking at the graphical, that little black thing around it, I think it's GGA. I would have that be contingent upon war with the Soviet Union. That's all. Just make sure you have war with the Soviet Union before it fires. Not does it exist or not, because it still exists, obviously way out there. They've joined in with these Poles who are currently doing reasonably well. Okay, hey, you come up here and then into there. Join that fight, suppressing the Jews. Okay, they've come in here finally. Okay, so we're fighting against the 6th Armoured Division. Uh-oh, they lost Heavy Cruiser Norfolk. Wow, good thing we had, I presume, some air power there? Or that was really lucky of us. That's what I was worried about. Django has been talking to me quite a bit about different things. One of them, he's been doing some experiments with the Navy. Now, I'm not doing what he suggests, partially because I don't have enough ships to do it. But his suggestion is for something like this is to, let's pick this. Let's say if it was here. Put this here, and maybe I thinking what he was saying was just to have the ships, the transport ships, completely unarmored or unescorted. But there's reasons to do that too. But then to have sort of like in front and to the sides and to the rear, and as they move along, escorted with, what was it, 2 carriers, 3 heavy cruisers, and 3 light cruisers, I think was his, or was it 3 carriers? But so you don't have overstacking penalties for the Navy, and you can take out much larger fleets with that, he found. But I think they're going to, unless they bump into, like obviously they did, and we took out the heavy cruiser. Unless they do that, and to help keep protecting things, we're going to just naval strike right there. Just, I think they're going to ignore my ship, because if I was coming somewhere else, they would see that as an invasion, and while the invasion was going on, they very well, if they have ships in the area like they do here, they might come in and go for it. But since we're going after for it invading friendly territory, I don't know that that's going to raise any big flags that they've got to come out and deal with it. We give them money for rare materials. No, we're trying to build our money up. And we got to that 1800. Okay, and we are back here now. Good. So we've taken out that Armoured Division, which now stops them from retreating, which is how I think they got there. 1 division down there. Okay, looks like we're doing good. They're the ones that are going to shatter or whatnot. You push into there. Don't let them get any respite. And do please understand this, the sort of the talk about the guns. It's just I'm explaining what I think will happen, not what I'm advocating will happen, because that could be really, really bad. This isn't a wish or a dream or this is what I'm going to do. No, it's just my sort of analysis of what I think enough people would do somewhere. Just visiting yesterday with my cousin who came into town, and he lives in Texas, and yeah, trust me, sort of the kind of stuff I was talking about is very clearly what the Texans would do if okay, we've defeated that one Jewish ghetto and the other Uprising unit. And so yeah, and I don't think the federal authorities, if they were going after something like that, could allow Texas. Oh, it's changed over into our territory? That's sort of surprising, which now means the Italians won't. Guess we occupied it first. Well, sometimes I definitely see it that if I'm tacking out of, say, Italian territory into some other area, even if I'm the first one to get vehicles there, it becomes Italian. I was expecting all this to become Italian. Fine with that, quite actually, but okay. Let's see if we can start pushing into here. Yes, okay. You supply down into here. Oh, too far, eh? Okay. Well then, thank God for these heavy supply aircraft. You're going there, which is important, but yeah, that's important. Let's get you guys operating in and around here. That's good. I should have had you already doing so, but I think we stopped for fuel supply reasons. Okay, you guys come down to here. Glad I had that air base built with the or we can maybe supply. Is there any air bases here? Nope, can't build in the Comoros because we don't own it. Okay, military police advance, which just helps their organization, which is good since so much of my military police is just now fighting partisan units instead of suppressing things. Or is it down here? Here it is. Okay. Oh, we haven't been doing these. We should. Now, here we are, well, let's do a little more than needed, but because now we're back 20,000 plus. And it's really just stuff sort of quote-unquote lost or temporary misplaced in our supply chain system. And not really needing to build up more supplies, but I just don't want to have it as a huge negative. Now, when are you going to get to there? Okay. In a while. Then I want to build another port there. Increase the supplies coming in. And the Soviet Union, we would give them fuel for money. Okay. Okay, lost that trade, and sure you can have energy for that. And we're going to save the game, because I've been talking for a while, and it's time to end the game. So, thank you for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. I really do appreciate that. Posting comments. That's wonderful if you would. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.